I was talking to a guy from Philadelphia last month, a young man about 27. I met him at a demonstration in Washington, actually. And I said, "How you doing, Dave?" He says, "Well," he's a college graduate. He graduated in sociology. He said, "Well, I'm working on a trucking dock, a loading dock in a food co-op." I said, "Oh." He said, "Yeah, I'm the least educated guy on the loading dock. And I got a degree in sociology." Why is that? Why do people have skills, but they can't find a job? They tell you education is the answer, right? Education is the answer. But the people who've got the education have no place to take it because all there is Walmart, Starbucks, Barnes & Noble. That's what people are looking at in the future. The skills in the jobs have been taken away. It's a low-skilled, low-wage economy. It's growing every place. For those who have a high degree in engineering and physics, maybe they can get a job from the upper echelons of society. But for most young people, the future, the occupational future, is very dim. It's a cold world out. The struggle, the competition for jobs among young people is fierce. The unemployment among people 16 to 24 is officially somewhere around 25%. That's officially. That's the Depression level, by the way. In the Depression, the highest level of unemployment was 25%. And in the African American community, it's probably about 50%. And that may be an optimistic figure. So how do we get here? And where is it going? And this is the crux of the issue for the coming generation. How is it that they've spent $10 trillion bailing out the banks? This is the U.S. government. $750 billion in stimulus package, which is really a handout to the capitalist class, hoping they'll hire some folks. And there's 30 million people underemployed and unemployed. They can't make a dent. Every time they announce the numbers for the unemployment rate, and if it goes a little bit favorable, there's a few jobs created, there are jobs for the census. Private industry is no longer creating jobs. Yet there's a capitalist recovery. Read about it. For the last 7 or 8 months, the capitalist economy production has been going up. But unemployment stays the same or gets worse. This is a big deal. It's a big deal. What is it saying? It's saying that the normal operation of capitalism, free enterprise, the market system, private ownership, private this, that the normal operation of the system cannot reabsorb 30 million workers. Now, I want to just go back and say, this is not something new. It's an extreme development. But it had a very definite beginning point in time in the United States, in the economy. It began in the year 1991, when George Bush's father was the president. Can you hear me back there? When George Bush's father was the president and his presidential term was ended, and he was all set to become the second-term president, and a recession hit. And he wanted Alan Greenspan, the head of the Reserve Board, to lower the interest rates to pump the economy up, and Greenspan didn't do it, and he went down to defeat, and there was a recession. And what happened in this recession, for the first time in the history of the United States since World War II, was that the economy began to expand without any new jobs being created. And it got everybody all nervous. The economists started to study this. It took a year after the recovery began for any jobs to be created, jobs. But then what happened is the Soviet Union collapsed, the Eastern Europe collapsed, and there was a huge expansion of U.S. capitalism abroad. Then came the scientific technological revolution with fiber optic cable, with internet, and so on. And then, has anyone ever heard of the dot-com Boston? Does that mean anything? That came at the end of the year 2000. That's when the bust happened. In the years prior to that, they were creating technology companies. Hundreds of them were being created every month. In a wild, speculative boom. It's fueled by low interest rates and by borrowing from the banks. And the whole thing collapsed. It was Clinton, the end of the Clinton administration, that carried over to the beginning of the Bush administration. Before that, when the Soviet Union collapsed, they were saying, this is the end of history. Humanity has reached its final culmination. Capitalism forever. The business cycle is over. We have defeated it. It was the longest economic expansion in U.S. history, 11 years. And the whole thing collapsed. And then the recovery started. As the recovery started in 2001, jobs were not only not coming back, they were losing jobs. Capitalists were expanding production, making more stuff, and they were at the same time they were making. And so, by 29 months into the recovery, the capitalist recovery, 600,000 workers had lost their jobs during the recovery time. So they began to study the situation. The Federal Reserve Board got really freaked out. Bernanke himself, who's now the chairman of the board, was then governor, and did a study of it, and commissioned other studies. And what did they find in these studies? They found that in all previous recessions and recoveries prior to 1991, when there were layoffs during the downturn, they were temporary layoffs. In all the recoveries after World War II, up until the one in 1991, the layoffs were temporary for the most part. Temporary meant the bosses laid everybody off till things got back, and then they rehired those workers. Sometimes the bosses would even help you get unemployment insurance to make sure you come back on the job because you had experience and so on. Starting in 1991, temporary layoffs were reduced to almost nothing. They were permanent layoffs. When the layoffs came, the jobs were destroyed. They weren't coming back, and those workers were out forever. They had to go find something else, someplace else. And not only that, they had to do it in competition with all the other workers who lost their jobs on a